So already a month into the war in West Asia, and there still seems to be very less clarity when it comes to the end game. Because there seems to be fresh escalation where US President Donald Trump has now threatened Iran's energy and water infrastructure if a deal with Iran has been reached to end the war and also mainly to reopen the crucial Strait of Hormuz. Remember, till this time, America had been sparing when it comes to the oil and energy infrastructure, and in fact had also asked Israel to refrain from attacking the Iranian infrastructure. However, it seems that President Trump seems to be reconsidering his decision. Interestingly, Donald Trump has also claimed that great progress has been made in talks with Iran. Who is he exactly engaging with? Well, that still lies in ambiguity. Because, in fact, he has also repeated his threats of bombing major fuel hub of the Kharg island, which supports at least 90% of the fuel supply to Iran. So that seems to be the focus point as far as Kharg Islands is concerned, because it was already on the 13th of March, where as far as the IRGC military headquarters is concerned, situated on Kharg Island, that was attacked and decimated by the US forces. So this seems to be a clear-cut warning from President Trump: open the Strait of Hormuz or else deal with the consequences. Because he is of the opinion if a deal to end the war is not reached, then if the Strait of Hormuz is not reopened, then Iran's energy infrastructure will be destroyed, will be completely obliterated, and Iran will have to face hell. And he's also said not ruling out strikes on Kharg Island if demands are not met. Now, this seems to be another part of retaliation on part of Iran, because it has outrightly rejected the demands by the United States of America. Now, Iran has been saying that the proposals given by US or by Washington are completely unrealistic, illogical, and unreasonable. Iran says that it has also warned that it is ready if any ground invasion happens, as thousands of soldiers from the United States Army arrived in the region. So projecting itself as far as when it comes to being in a good or a better position as far as on the land is concerned, because boots on the ground, well, if this works in the favor of US or in the favor of President Trump in the long run, that remains to be seen. But he has not completely ruled out that option. So let's connect with Srinjoy on this. Srinjoy, good morning. Another day, another warning by President Trump. He says, reopen the Strait of Hormuz, meet our demands, or else face the consequences.
He has given Iran till about the 5th or 6th of April. So that's another 5 or 6 days before he decides on a full-scale assault in terms of attacks on Iran's infrastructure, power plants, and so on. Now, so far, Iran has not budged. And we don't know how the talks are going, how the talks indirectly through the Pakistanis, the Turks, the Egyptians, and so on, how they are going. So at this point, it's very hard to say what the president will do. You've spoken about soldiers, American troops getting towards the Persian Gulf. That's absolutely correct. The 82nd Airborne is there, and it's one of those crack divisions, along with the 101st. The Marines are there. But there are 3 or 4 options. What is President Trump going to do? One, of course, everyone is talking about Kharg Island. So if you're going to strike Kharg Island and you're talking about it endlessly, you would imagine that the Iranians would have moved troops there, would have reinforced their positions, would have done something about it. That's the first thing. Secondly, there's talk about doing an operation inside Iran, Isfahan or Natanz, and removing about 450 or 60 kilograms of enriched uranium. Now, is that feasible? Can that actually be done? Now, that's something that has been talked about. The third, to protect the Strait of Hormuz, a sort of encampment, a beachhead on the coast of mainland Iran. Again, is it feasible in the long run? How long can you have troops, American troops, on the Iranian mainland in the form of a beachhead? So these are things that have to be militarily looked at very carefully, and then taken a decision on.
Well, because this war is turning out to be quite expensive, even for the US as well, because it seems that there seems to be a, rather revision when it comes to their decision of thinking, because previously the statements that came in from President Trump, he seems to suggest that they are ready for a long, sustained war with Iran. Now he seems to be talking about ending the war and Iran agreeing to the terms and conditions that has been said by the United States of America. But speaking of the U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio has now claimed that now Iran is at its weakest point, saying the American military objectives have been largely achieved, and in weeks and on months after targeting key naval and missile capabilities, has also made it clear that U.S. will not allow Iran to control the Strait of Hormuz, and has now vowed to neutralize any threat to the region as the operation seems to have intensified. So this seems to be another claim, rather statement that has now been coming in, because this is rather a possibility where U.S. time and again has been hinting that as far as their objectives are concerned, militarily speaking, largely have been achieved.
The Iranians are threatening that they're going to set up some permanent system in the Straits of Hormuz where they get to decide who goes through international waterways. That will never be allowed to happen. By the way, the rest of the world should take note of that. They have more at stake there than we do. The president has several options at his disposal, and the Department of War is preparing optionality for the president for this and various other contingencies that might arise.
But the strikes continue. And as far as Tehran and other cities in Iran is also concerned, we're looking at strikes that have been continuously being carried out jointly by Israel and the United States. And this is President Trump has posted a video. However, it is not clear. Now, the U.S. has vowed to retake control over the Strait of Hormuz, because it has now been flagging freedom of navigation, saying that the U.S. will secure the strait access. So the claims that has been coming in, because President Trump still continues to urge other countries as well who use the transit of the Strait of Hormuz, and saying that multinational force still seems to be an option on the table. Well, who is the pressure actually building on? Shinjoy, Strait of Hormuz, as you said, has been weaponized by Iran, and successfully so. Is that an option as far as the U.S. still continues to believe that one day they would have the control over the Strait of Hormuz? This has been said previously as well, but there is not much as a result that can be seen on the ground.
The Americans have their plans. Now, what the Americans also did was ask other countries to help out. And we know that. They asked NATO allies, Britain, France, Germany, Greece, other countries, to help out, and all of them have refused. Then they asked other allies, the Japanese, the South Koreans, the Australians, and surprisingly perhaps the Chinese to help out, and no help has been forthcoming so far. Now at this point, the Americans believe that they can keep the Straits of Hormuz open using their own forces. Now there is another issue here. Of course, America has a strong navy. There were 2 carriers there. The Lincoln is still there. The point is, what about the shipping companies? Are they prepared to navigate through the Strait of Hormuz? That's really a question. You spoke about a tanker being hit in Dubai. Now, why was that tanker hit? Clearly, it's a message to shipping companies. It's a message to others, ship owners, saying that, look here, if you go through the Strait of Hormuz, this is something that can happen to you. Now, is this a risk the shipping companies are ready to take? So also, what kind of insurance will Lloyd's look at? So these are things that have to be kept in mind.
Yes.
The shipping companies will ask themselves, is it worth the risk? Is it worth getting one of my ships hit?
Yes.
Is it worth the insurance?
Yes.
And then if I lose some of my personnel, that's a huge risk as well.
Yes.
So these are
because
questions.
There are several Indian ships, of course, they have been given a clear passage, and this is the result because of diplomatic and direct talks with the Iranian leadership that seems to have been yielding positive results, but there are still several other tankers as well that remain stranded at sea at the Persian Gulf. But there are more developments coming in. Let's focus on that, because the Defense Secretary of US, Pete Hegseth, seems to be attempted to make a big investment in major defense companies in the weeks leading up to US-Israeli attack on Iran. Now, this is a media report that seems to suggest that Hegseth's broker opened a new tab, contacted when it comes to BlackRock, and opened a new tab in February about making a multi-million-dollar investment in the asset manager's defense industrials active shortly before the US launched military action against Iran. And this has now been added on per the report, where they believe that the investment discussed by Hegseth's broker did not ultimately go ahead, as the fund, which was launched in May last year, was not available. Well, that seems to be a report that has now been filed by an international media. But this seems to face further scrutiny, because Pentagon, however, has denied any investment claim by Pete Hegseth. And Pentagon has been saying that these allegations are false and fabricated. And they have been saying that this is an attempt to smear. And the War Department maintains that this is has been also demanding an immediate, retraction. Because, Shinroy, will it lead to further scrutiny of a pre-war investment move by the Secretary of War?
Surely there will be an investigation. And it's up to the US government to investigate the whole thing, get to the bottom of it, find out the truth, and then come up with a statement. Because this is an internal matter of the United States. And of course, it raises many questions. But naturally, the whole thing has to be verified by the US government.
All right. Well, remains to be seen, because Pentagon has been denying all of these claims that are reported to an international media report. We'll reconnect with you, Srinjoy. Lots more lined up. We're going to head into a very short break. You're watching Times Now.